Good evening and welcome to December 3rd, 2013 meeting of the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners. May we have the roll call, please?
Present is Selectman Whiteside, Selectman Holmes, Selectman Slavin, Selectman Titlebaum, Town Administrator Derek Sullivan.
Next item, please.
Announcements. Mrs. Whiteside?
Yes, thank you. A couple, please. I just want to remind people that it is hunting season with long guns, and that walking in the woods is really nice and fun, but you really should have on that international orange. And be very, very careful, because there are very responsible hunters, and then there's some people who are not. And the other thing that I'd like to announce is that I have a contract at Bollywood. It begins next June. I'm going to be spending. No, it's a joke. Ha ha ha. Want to thank everybody who came and watched me make a complete idiot out of myself. But it was lots of fun. Thank you very much.
Mr. Holmes?
Actually, Judy, we had one of your groupies here last week in your absence, touting your fame and success, and they claimed you already had a contract. So I'm not sure if you're trying to mislead us or not. On to serious business. I just left the coach, and the Wareham Tigers are really showing a great example of what our community is all about. So far, they're probably about the $35,000 range. Last week we sat here and said $50,000, and some people doubted that it couldn't be done. So with about 22 hours to go, we still need probably $15,000. They've been out collecting baskets on the street. Local businesses are giving percentages of their take. Tonight they have the spaghetti dinner, so if you want to leave this meeting for a few minutes, go down and spend $10 down in Pierview and donate for the kids. They have a Facebook, which I thought was pretty cool. It's pretty easy to follow. You just click a button, give the crowd number, and they take your money. That was pretty easy. They're out on Main Street with the bucket. They'll be there tonight, all day tomorrow. And then, it's pretty hopeful that they should be able to do this on their own with the help of our community. If for some reason, though, in 22 hours, it doesn't happen, and you see my number on your phone and you know who you are, answer the phone. And there's only one answer that would be acceptable, and that's yes. Or if any of my colleagues, you see their numbers on your phone, the only answer is yes. And here's my thought process, because I think it's important. Because remember, we're taking $50,000 from, in the month of December, what typically is, Sunday we had the Toys for Kids at Cancer down at Stevie B's. There's other toy drives going on around the town. So what we're doing is, we don't have a lot of money in this town, and we're shifting money from one pocket to another. But here's my thought process. You give a kid a gift, and they enjoy the gift, and they remember the gift, and they play with it for a little while, and then they might get another gift, and they get busy with that. But for these kids, we're talking about 35 kids, 11 years old to 13. This is a gift that's going to last them for the rest of their lives. Their parents' memories, their grandparents' memories, the sisters, the brothers. So I don't like to pit one against the other, and I'm not trying to do that, but I think that this is a worthwhile venture. So if your phone rings tomorrow around 5, please don't block my calls or my colleagues' calls. Just take the calls and say yes. And between all of us, whatever the balance is, we should be able to cover pretty easily. And I just wanted to say that I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. And being as I would have been on the track next week, I did want to take a moment and just thoughts and prayers to the people in New York on that Hudson line that got banged up, 4 people dead. I use that line a lot, so next week I'll be renting a car. And I know that she didn't think that was funny. It just sounded funny. So that's about all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay. First one. Wareham Summer Celebration 2014 Committee invites local business owners and staff to a meeting on December 5th at 5:30 p.m. in the Town Hall cafeteria. Stop by to learn how your businesses can become involved in the celebration that will bring additional visitors to the town. A variety of events have been scheduled for next summer to celebrate the town's 275th birthday and the historic attack on Wareham by the British warship, the HMS Nimrod. Don't miss this opportunity to participate in showcasing your business by planning now to be ready for June and July of 2014. For more information, contact Claire Smith at 508-295-4679 or email celebrate2014@wareham.mass.us. Buzzards Bay Production Playhouse is going to have Matt Rose, a mentalist event on November 29th and 30th. Actually, that's gone by already, so it doesn't matter. Try the next one. They have a craft fair on December 14th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., and that will be at 3065 Cranberry Highway, Wareham, Mass. Okay. In Wareham, we have a community blood drive. Will be held on Thursday, December 12th, 2 to 7 p.m. at the Wareham Elks Lodge, 2855 Cranberry Highway. Christine Roderick's Christmas Special for children that live in Wareham, ages 1 to 7, December 13th, 6 to 7 p.m. at the 4 Square Church, 301 Onset Ave, Onset. Boys and girls between the ages of 1 and 7. Donations are welcome and may be dropped off at the 4 Square Church. Children of our men and women who are deployed are also welcome to attend. Please mark the gifts with age and whether it's for a boy or a girl. Come one, come all, and visit with Santa. Production director will be Tootsie Russell and Christine Roderick, and WCTV will be televising it live. I have an announcement from the Department of Conservation and Recreation from the Commonwealth of Mass. On Tuesday, December 10th at 6:30 to 8 p.m. at the Plymouth Public Library at 132 South Street, Plymouth. This is a meeting for basically preparation of a resource management plan for Miles Standish Complex. People are basically invited to come and present input where it's necessary. This will include Bay Farm, Ellsville Harbor State Park, Kingston State Forest, Mulligan's Landing, Miles Standish Monument State Reserve, Miles Standish State Forest, National Monument to the Forefathers, Pilgrim Memorial State Park, and the Scusser Beach State Reservation. Mr. White has his coffee hour this Thursday with Mrs. Christine Panarisi, I think it is. Panarisi, principal at the Deacon School. Bob, I can't quite figure out where it says U.S. Air Force to Academic. It's at 9 a.m. Thursday, December 5th, room 225, Multi-Service Center, Wareham. That's it. Go ahead. It's all yours.
I don't want to miss this because I'm back on my tour. And Saturday, I spent quite a bit of time at the new hobby store. If anybody's not familiar, there's a hobby store over on Cranberry Highway, right next door to the Buzzards Bay Production Playhouse, and right in that same little cubby is the Mattress Center. So if you're into models, or you used to be, or you're into trains, or you used to be, Sean and I picked up a nice new train set to put on in our little village, or car racing, or they have these events on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights, I guess, with this new card game kids are into. And he said that he had, some nights between 30 and 50 people there playing this game. Are you familiar with the game? Who said that? There you go. Bingo. That's it. Magic. Do you know the game? It's a new game, right? Oh, really? Okay. So that's good for the Boy Scouts, too. They have a place to go. Does your son go? Oh, he does. Okay. So now you know where they're playing in town, and they get quite a crowd. So I wanted to give him a big shout-out. I hadn't been in there yet. I've seen the sign. And, again, it's the hobby shop. He's over on Cranberry Highway right next door to the Playhouse. And they're doing a great job there.
Mr. Titlebaum.
I just have a couple of things. One is just a reminder that everybody's sewer user fees are due to be paid by tomorrow. So December 4th, December 5th, the town starts charging you money, so you don't want that to happen. The second thing is that Wareham Public Schools Superintendent Kimberly Shaver-Hood is going to be available for meet and greets tomorrow at the Stonebridge. The first session, if you will, I guess is at 9 a.m. And I think, but you want to verify this, the second one is in the evening at 6 o'clock. So she's going to be down there. If you have concerns about the schools or you just want to go and meet her and talk and discuss things with her, she'll be available. And that's all I have. Up.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but there's a lot going on this week. For all those who've called me yelling, sent nasty emails, I will see you tomorrow at 5:30 at Bay Point Country Club. You will see the presentation by Mr. Pina and Sita. And once again, I want to emphasize, I haven't seen it. I haven't heard about it, so I don't know anything in advance. All I know is that these are not even recommendations, just findings from a study, to be perfectly square about it. That's 5:30, Bay Point Country Club. In the pavilion, Derek? Do you know?
Yeah, it's in the pavilion.
Yeah,
It's in the pavilion building, right? So come down, see the new building, see the presentation by Mr. Pina and guest. You're looking at me puzzled.
No,
Am
I think
mistaken?
it's no. You're right on it. I think it'll actually be the consultants that are presenting
Right.
it. So.
His guest, I said.
Yeah, that's
I did say his guest.
You got
He
yeah.
probably is better off not to present,
Right.
and then it doesn't appear as the town is doing anything, because people are riled up. So, and if you don't show up, then please don't call me or email me with nasty emails, because this is your chance to come to the public meeting and listen to what the consultants have to say. That's an important one.
Thanks. Next item, please.
Citizens' participation. Hey, they're calling in already.
That was quick.
Nobody.
Seeing none, next item, please.
Consent agenda. I don't have any bills today. And actually, they were right up to date on the minutes, so there's no minutes tonight either. It says approval of October 22nd minutes. But
Yeah, they're in here.
Well, he may not have the original. We do have them.
give me a minute. I'll go through and see if they're out of order or missed. I got it.
I've already looked. You can take my
No.
copy if you don't. All
Sorry,
right.
it was buried in another folder. I missed it. I'll have a motion to accept the minutes of October 22nd.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Holmes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. Approved.
Thank you. Need new glasses.
Okay, next item, please.
License and permits, we have none tonight. Funding source for contract 2, still waiting on the DOR review. And we have no other sewer business for this meeting.
I would just ask at this point, Mr. Sullivan, do you know if the DOR is still on track to get down here in January? I know you've been dealing with them over the past week, but probably on different matters.
Yeah, it's been on different matters, but they when they've scheduled it, they're still within the realm. They haven't had any setbacks, but I'll confirm with them again, because January seemed like an awful long time away, and it's right around the corner. So
Right. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is our weekly peace guidance to the town administrator for the coming year. Mrs. Whiteside.
A couple of weeks ago, I think I submitted in writing my recommendations for you. I just really want to say publicly, however, probably however is the wrong word, that in my visiting in the different departments of the town, we are doing the best we can with minimum resources. That is not meant to be a criticism of anybody. It's meant to be praise for Mr. Sullivan and his department heads and the people who are doing the day-to-day work. Unless you actually work for the town or are in town hall on a basically every other day basis, it's pretty hard to understand how how the amount of work that needs to be done is getting done. So I compliment you, but I also hope that you find a way in your presentation for the next year's budget to ease up on the amount of work that is, not the amount of work, the number of people. You got to get more bodies in there, Mr. Sullivan. I don't know how to say it any other way.
Mr. Holmes? I just have a few pieces, but I think Mr. Sullivan can do it during his report. I think we need to have an update on the EdStat program with Bridgewater State and Northeastern University. Also, the workshop committee that the town administrator has for the public safety complex. I think we need to see where we are with that as well. Thank you.
Yes, I don't have anything tonight. Next, please.
Okay, report by town moderator on electronic voting.
Good evening. I hope you're not going to read all that.
No. That's why I'm handing it to you.
I was going to say, you can take my water if you are.
Just so that you'll have the information, you can read it at your pleasure or leisure.
Thank you.
Can I have
Thanks,
one for
Clay.
the file, please? Thank you.
Good evening. About a week and a half ago, I had the pleasure of attending the Wayland Town meeting with the president of the Mass Moderators Association and 3 of my fellow moderators to observe electronic voting. While I know that the town of Wareham isn't in a position financially at this point in time to move forward with anything like that, I wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to go and observe it and to try to learn, because at some point in time it's going to come. And so this is one of the things that the Mass Moderators Association is working on, and probably within the next 5 to 6 years you're going to see a wave of towns moving in that direction. Now, the towns of Framingham, Chelmsford, and Brookline all have representative town meetings. So they have been using electronic voting for the past couple of years. And it works out well for them because they know how many representatives they have at their meetings, so they know how many handheld sets they need. So it's very definitive for them to come up with a cost based on knowing what they have and how many they need. But in an open town meeting position, it's a little different because you don't know if you're going to have 100 people, or as in Wayland 2 weeks ago, they had 650. So there's a great flexibility between representative town meetings and open town meetings in knowing how many handheld sets you would need to purchase or lease, and what the cost would be. Now, the fundamental purpose of using electronic voting between an open town meeting and a representative town meeting are generally completely opposite. In a representative town meeting, it's promoted as a means of voter accountability to those that they elect to represent them at a town meeting. So the constituents want to know how their representative voted on their behalf. So for that reason, that software would be different than the software you would have if you had an open town meeting. And in an open town meeting, the purpose mainly is for the preservation of anonymity. It will change the dynamics of a town meeting if people are able to vote without having others observing how they're voting. It does speed up town meeting because you're not taking a standing count. You know within 10 seconds exactly what the vote is. There is no question whether it passes by a majority or a 2/3 majority. And especially when you get into situations where you have a voice vote and, you know, it's a moderator's call as to whether it passes or doesn't pass and people question it, there's absolutely no question when you have electronic voting. So I'll just run through quickly how it all works. And the reason I put the packets together for you, because then it will give you the opportunity to really take a moment to go back and really get the nuts and bolts of it. But generally, how does it work? The handsets are almost like a remote control. But instead of pushing the buttons to change channels, you actually push buttons to vote. And you would have 3 choices. You would vote number 1 in favor, number 2 if you opposed it, or the 3rd button is to clear your votes, or if you have a problem with your handset. And the way that they set this up, it's not done through Wi-Fi or internet. It's done by radio communications. So there's no live Wi-Fi or no way that someone can get into your vote if they have Wi-Fi on their phones or anything like that. It's done by transceivers and receivers. So the major installation would be putting up a transceiver and receiver in the room that you're going to have it, and that would be a permanent installation. And then the company would bring in computer hardware that would operate all the handsets. And what happens is the state voting list is printed such so that every voter has a barcode next to their name. So the checkers would take that scanner and they would scan over the barcode, and it would check you in as a voter, and it would also link you to the handheld handset. Now that handset only tells the checker who you are and that you have it. It doesn't, during the vote, record your vote or keep track of how you're voting in any way, shape, or form, although in a representative town meeting it would, but in an open town meeting it would not. So there's where your difference is between software packages. It's almost instantaneous. The vote is counted and comes in with about 10 seconds. I have to tell you, it was very impressive. There were only 4 articles on the special town meeting. And one of the articles was a very controversial article. And I think in observing the way people spoke, the way that they talked, I think it made people a lot more comfortable in how they acted. And generally you saw an overall calmness to town meeting. I have to say I was as much impressed with the town meeting itself and the way people stood up to speak as I was with the electronic voting. It just seemed to make a whole difference in the whole attitude of the room. And when you had 650 people with a very controversial, an article that's been before them 3 times already. But the proponents of this electronic voting in Wayland were very quick to point out that they have seen a substantial change in the manner of the people attending town meeting. So what happens is before each vote, the moderator will summarize the motion before you, and then he'll announce the beginning of a 30-second window of opportunity, and they have a light that comes on, and you have 30 seconds to cast your vote. And at any point during that 30 seconds, if you change your mind, you can go back and you can change your vote. At the end of 30 seconds, that light goes off and it counts the votes, and that's the end of it. And then they clear all the records. It was pretty impressive to see how it all worked. Excuse me. Something that the mass moderators are very interested in promoting in the next few years. I think Brookline, if you're talking about cost, purchased their voting system with, I think, about 250 handsets at to around $20,000. Wayland was very fortunate that this particular company that was there that evening came for their first meeting that they used it at and just did a demonstration, so it didn't cost them anything, but it had a value of about, and you'll see in the packet, about $29,000, and that was with 2,000 handheld sets available. They actually come in with all the technicians, all of the tech people to set everything up. They do all the training. They're there for the town meeting. They will set up based on, and one of the things that the town has to come up with, you have to kind of anticipate how many people you'll think you'll have, and then they'll set up computer stations for people to check in, and also to check out. So it was pretty smoothly done. I didn't see any other than they felt that night they had shortchanged the estimate. They thought they'd have about 400 people. So having an extra 250 people, they wished that they had 2 more stations for people to check in with. So there was a little bit of a delay in getting people into the hallway. I would say maybe about 4 or 5 minutes. And the moderator took a recess for about 5 minutes to allow those people to get into the hallway. Now, when you go out, you actually put all of your handhelds into a box. They're checked in, they're scanned back in. And if you happen to put yours in your pocket and take it home, you do get a call the next day and someone comes and picks it up. So it was pretty impressive. I think it's something worthwhile that maybe thoughts of putting together a committee. They do call the Wayland Committee the Elvis Committee. It's the Electronic Voting Informational Subcommittee. Several of them are MIT graduates who fully understand bits and bytes of computers. They went over this process with a very fine-tooth comb. They wanted to understand how all the computer system worked and all the software worked, and to make sure that there was no compromising of anybody's privacy. And they did an enormous amount of work. So at some point in time, it might be worthwhile to have them come down and just explain how it all went together for them, how they put it together, how they did their study, and how it's been working. But they are thrilled with it. I think Andover is going to try it out. They're an open town meeting. I think they're going to try it in the spring. But you're welcome to attend any of the spring town meetings that are going to be doing electronic voting if you want to go and see how it works. Wayland would welcome you with open arms. They really are encouraging the Mass Moderators Association to really do some hard studying on this and promote it, because they think it's going to work really well for the future.
Thank you. Questions?
We've had, over the last 3 or 4 years, this has been discussed with electronic voting, and I can say that every year at least 10 to 15 individual businessmen come up and either call, email, or make a comment that they'd go to town meeting if they could vote, where they could vote freely and not worry about someone watching them, because they're in business in town, and sometimes votes get controversial. So I know that as far as people coming to town meeting would definitely increase our participation, especially with a lot of the business people who are very important to us overall. So
I absolutely agree, Mr. Slavin, and this is one of the important things about electronic voting, is because you do have that confidentiality. And I will tell you that in Wayland they have 2 different microphones. I really like the way that they handle it. And there was a gentleman who stood up to speak against this particular article, and he started out by saying, "I rise to speak in opposition to the article, but I support it." I would wager with that electronic voting, he did vote yes. I would bet a donation to the Tigers football team that he did vote yes, because nobody was able to see his vote. But he just wanted to stand and make his point of one thing that he disagreed with. So I think you're right. I mean, I think people certainly would feel much more comfortable if they could come and not worry about how people are voting.
well, I know there's a few firms anyway that had made that offer. They give you one free shot to try. So it'd be worth looking into some more.
Yeah, that's my point. I've been making this argument for going on 4 years now. With this body being put up on the stage, in the spotlight, when I attend town meeting, even as a member of the Board of Selectmen, I am not a member of the Board of Selectmen at that meeting. I have a freedom to come to town meeting as a registered voter in the town of Wareham. And yet, we're not allowed that privilege as selectmen. We're not in session. There's nothing for us to do there. The meeting is run by the town moderator. The Articles are presented by the Finance Committee. Mr. Sullivan is there to do a fine job to answer the questions. And if ever need be, you can get one of the 5 politicians to stand up and answer a question. But it's my point exactly why you want to do this, right? And what makes sense is my same opposition to the Board of Selectmen being stuck on that stage, because I sit here and I represent the town of Wareham every Tuesday night. But when I go home and I go to town meeting because I feel like going as a registered taxpayer in this town, I should be able to vote the way I want without people taking pictures of me, putting that on TV, right? Madam
Absolutely, and
Moderator, do you agree with
I have a
that?
policy that there's no picture taking during votes.
But yet, there are pictures taken when you have a video live stream from the hall, and the pictures you see in the local papers are the selectmen sitting there with these tags in the air on stage. So when you're on stage, you lose that privacy privilege.
Yeah.
So for this reason, I would support looking at this technology as a way of helping the selectmen to be, because when we're there, technically we are private taxpayers. We're not members of the Board of Selectmen. That's my opinion.
Thanks.
And, so I think this is good, because there's a lot of people who don't go to town meeting, because although you can't walk up to somebody and take a snapshot, and if the moderator catches it, then she'll catch it. But with cell phones and everything today, people can take your picture voting and you don't see it unless somebody complains. But you are in a live stream, and a lot of times the pictures, if you look at the local newspapers, the picture you see is a group of people sitting at the table on the stage with their hands up. So I would support looking at something like that. We just have to figure out, well, we know we can get the first one for free, right?
To start.
It would be paying for the town, for the fall town meeting that we have to worry about.
Anything else? No, it's interesting. Keep us posted. Perhaps when you see things in Mass Moderators publications referring to this, you could forward them to us.
Absolutely. And I can give you dates of some of the town meetings that are coming up. I think Wayland is maybe March 3rd, but we have specifically asked that anybody using electronic voting with the Springtown meeting, if they would alert us so that we would have the opportunity to get the word out. So if anybody wanted to attend to observe, they would have that opportunity.
Yes, we can make those announcements from here too, as they come in
Yeah.
during the announcements.
In
so.
any of the local citizens, you can go on to Framingham's website. They also do their town meetings live. You can actually see it in action. You can go to the Wayland website, and they actually have all of their reports from the Elvis Committee. So if anybody wanted to see the same packet that I printed out for you, which went through the process of how they investigated it and what things you have to do prior to town meeting, during town meeting, and after town meeting. It's not easy. I mean, there is work to it.
Yeah.
You just don't come in with handsets and hand them out. There's a lot of prep work that has to be done. You have to have people that are technologically savvy, because if one of the handsets goes down during a vote, they have to jump up and hand it to the person. And then you have those who don't want to use the handset. And there were several of those people there of the older generation that just weren't comfortable with it. So you have to have a section where they still can vote by hand and account. So there's a lot more to it. It's not just as simple as saying, okay, let's bring the handsets in. So, which is why I did the packet. And again, you can go on Wayland's website and read through it. It gives a lot of explanation of the roles of every department that would be involved in having to set it up. They do have to come in 2 days in advance. So you don't want to plan your town meeting after a long weekend, because they do need 2 days ahead to get in. So there's a lot to it. It's not real simple, but certainly I give it 2 thumbs up. I loved it. I thought it was wonderful.
So it sounds like our current tellers, what do you call it, ticket tellers?
The counters,
They would still have a role at town meeting.
they would be there in
Well,
the,
if you have to have a section for people to be counted, there's one.
yeah, but
right?
you would, yeah, so you probably would only
Because
need
we
one
don't want to kick
teller.
them out of a job.
And you want to have them there if something electrical, I mean,
They
it's
can be
not
trained.
foolproof.
They can be trained to,
If something
switch it.
happens that the radio signal doesn't work, and then you get into the issue, if you have an overflow room, You also have to make sure that you've got a transponder in that room because you want to be able to communicate back and forth with those in another room as well. So it's not a simple thing, but it certainly is something I think worth investigating and putting together a committee to go to a meeting and take a look and see how it all works. And it certainly bears some discussion.
Is there anybody oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Is there anybody voting from home that you've,
No,
documented
no,
yet?
and the reason for that is because it's hard to determine the integrity of the person actually voting at home. I mean, it could be anybody holding their phone or whatever. I will say that there is one moderator that does allow tweeting of questions. They have one person at town meeting who receives the tweets, and they do accept questions that are tweeted to town meeting. I have not observed that yet. I'm not ready for that. I'm not a tweeter. I haven't quite, I mean, I do have a Twitter account, but I don't
well,
live
no,
by
if they
my
can't
phone.
vote from home, there's no need to let them
so.
tune in.
But it's coming. It is coming. Technology is changing. It's becoming
Yeah,
thing of
it's
the
easy
future.
to identify someone, that wouldn't be an issue. Who's sitting behind the screen? That's easy enough to do.
Well,
But I
thank,
was wondering if anybody had been doing that, because, you know, if I had my druthers about it, I would go to that. If we had an option, I'd go to that and shoot for that as opposed to this.
That would be more
Because this
wide.
still only
yeah.
covers the 300 people that show up, or
Yeah.
151.
That would be more Wi-Fi, and your ability to tap into that somehow. The security isn't quite as secure.
No.
you'd have to probably register ahead of time, get some kind of a code to put in
You wouldn't,
to
be able
access.
you wouldn't be able to hack into a system that was approved for voting. That wouldn't happen.
Well, thank you very much. This is all very interesting.
It was
And
very
anything
interesting.
we
I
can,
actually enjoyed going, even though it was a little bit of a drive, and my directionals broke down on Route 128, so I couldn't pull out in the left-hand lane in rush hour traffic. So it was a little bit of.
You use directionals?
I do. I do.
Not a Massachusetts driver.
Barris has a question. You are.
Nobody
are.
yet.
You are.
I mean, if they do.
Write the check, Jerry.
Huh?
Write the check, Jerry.
No, no, and, we have to pay for people come in to make sure you're doing it right, or?
Yeah, let me
Well,
see.
to answer that, I
Mr.
mean,
Chairman, you could let the moderator go back through Wayland's cost, so that
Yeah.
he has some idea of what
yeah.
it costs.
And, I mean, initially, you're going to want to have the company that is setting this up to have their technicians there. But the eventuality is that you would hope that there would be enough training that you utilize your own people, that you would have the people in town that were technologically adept to be able to do that. And Wayland's Elvis Committee, like I say, they're all MIT graduates, and they all have that expertise, and that's what they're utilizing. So they don't have that added cost of bringing in from the outside. They're using their own people. It's something, you know, in one of the things that maybe the town could consider, and I don't know whether, you know, the districts certainly have their district meetings, whether you could buy a set of handhelds and then just come up with the software packaging. I mean, there's options, there's grant money out there. One of the thoughts that was asked was maybe if the Moderators Association would purchase a set, but then the problem became that a lot of towns have their town meetings on the same night.
Yep.
So they wouldn't be able to buy near enough handhelds to go around. So it's in its infancy stage, but like I said, it's worth getting in on the ground floor and exploring, so we're ready to jump when we do have the finances.
But the bottom line was, if it was all rented, right? If you look at Wayland's estimate, if it was all rented and the town owned nothing, right? They would come in and spend a couple of days per town meeting. It could be 2 or 3 days in our case, right? Because was Wayland's meeting over in one day, one night?
This particular night was, but they generally go 6 nights.
So this estimate was for about 29 grand.
That was to buy. I think if you look at that, that's to buy with 2,000 handhelds.
That's a buy. That's a buy. It's
Well,
not-
it would have been
That's to buy.
25 grand to buy. And then
Yeah,
4,000
and that's with 2,000 handhelds.
4,000 for the,
people setting
for
up.
the services. So if
One-
you bought it for 25 grand, you figure you split it 3 ways, right?
You can also,
It's about $8,000 apiece.
there'll be, if this,
And I'm sure you could get a deal.
well, if this becomes something that's viable, I'm sure there'll be lease programs, et cetera, which cut the cost down substantially.
Yeah, there are lease programs, and some of the
Down the
towns are
road, you set
using them.
set up a room where it's available, and then the districts, two districts.
Could hold their
use it.
meetings, right?
We hold our meetings there, or any other kind of special meetings.
Falls into our regional program with other towns around us.
You
It
guys
fall-
need to use
it-
them
It
ways.
falls into the regionalization ideas of using like one set for 3 or 4
Maybe our
towns.
IT
No, you
director
can't,
could look at,
unfortunately, you
grant money.
can't, because there is, and I don't want to misquote Mr. Slavin, but there is, and I think it's a mass general law, that you cannot hold your town meetings outside of the boundaries of your town meeting without a special,
No, what I'm saying is that we have, say, our meeting on the 4th week. Mary might have theirs in May instead.
they couldn't commit, yeah, but they couldn't come into Wareham to use it.
No, I'm
Yeah.
saying we actually take
Take the sets.
and bring it there and bring it to the
bring it
other
to there.
town.
You still would have to have the permanent transceiver responder
It's just-
installed,
it's
and they
one
would have
piece.
to. So,
It's-
it bears,
It's an idea.
yeah, it bears some discussion.
We have options.
One question I have, what procedures did they go through to adopt doing town meeting this way? Did they change their bylaws, charter? Was it a
This
moderator's
the-
decision,
No,
or-
this was a vote of town meeting.
Okay.
It was a vote of town meeting.
So then it was a warrant article to
It
proceed in
was
this
a warrant
fashion then?
article, as was to set up the Elvis committee as well. That-
Okay.
Because you have a cost involved, anytime you have a cost involved where it requires an appropriation of money, it's generally a committee that's set up by town meeting.
Well, anything else?
Sounds good.
Thank you for all your time on this. Very
It was-
interesting.
I enjoyed it, I have to say, I did enjoy it.
Next item, please.
Next item is the vote to sign Massachusetts Coastal Coalition letter.
You're skipping over one. Look at C.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had it checked off ahead of time. After action report, Veterans Day celebrations. Mr. White, I believe,
Come on out, Bob.
and Ms. Boyle. Ms. Boyle.
Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sharon and I are here to give you what we consider to be a final wrap-up on the Veterans Day affair we had in the 11th of November. Our objective was to conduct an appropriate multi-community event that afforded the community an opportunity to recognize and celebrate the service of its veterans in the defense of our nation. I think Sharon and I would agree that we try to do that in the best possible way for the town of Wareham. Without belaboring you with all of the details, unless Sharon has some things she'd like to say about it, I'd like to skip to the bottom line. A copy of this will be presented to you when it's electronically available. Did you have some things you'd like to say, Sharon?
Well, actually, yes. I do want to say that this year we had probably 80 people volunteer for the day, which was great. We had many new venues this year with the food tents outside. That worked really well. The check-in station at the beginning of the parade went well, so I was really glad for that. As far as the people, they all came out, and it was wonderful. I can't even say anything more than thank you, and that we will be starting working on next year. So I'm hoping I can reach out to all those people again and more for next year. So that's pretty much it for me.
I want to raise some issues that we want to think about for another year. There's some issues such as scheduling, which is confined to November 11th. That's the official day. There is a downside to that, and that is the fact that the holiday is not observed universally by all businesses. So we can only involve and attract a portion of our citizens and a portion of the veterans. Competing interests on Veterans Day, which are normal in anybody's life. I'm also concerned about the vitality of the veterans organizations in Wareham. And I am concerned about the vitality of the Wareham Veterans Council itself. These things, I think, are beyond Sharon and my ability to influence. We are interested in continuing a long-term relationship or a longer-term relationship with other communities. We'd like to be able to coordinate and execute all aspects of the celebration. That remains in doubt if we can't do that, I think. It takes a lot of energy in terms of internal energy in a part of the town to make it happen, and we don't have enough critical mass in some areas to carry it off in a way which we might expect. The other thing is that seems to be an absence of long-term leadership. I'm not going to be involved forever. I can't speak for Sharon, but I know my time is limited on this committee or in this team that we've got here. So it's important that we were able to find other people to step up and take leadership roles and get involved sooner rather than later, because you want to learn what the drum beat is before you start playing with the band. And this is a way to get started with it. The other thing that concerns me is that there's no funding for the Wareham Veterans Council. So anything we try to do, we're doing from a zero-based budget, which is not unlike many organizations and many activities in town. I understand that. But in order to take this project to another level, we need money for bands and other events that we might have to pay for, or other things we might have to pay for. At this point, the Veterans Council depends on the appropriations that are granted through the budgetary process, which are zero. It kind of drives us in the direction of either disbanding the Veterans Council and finding other ways to do this, or finding somebody to help raise the money for the Veterans Council as a 501c3. The notion has been toyed with about forming a Friends of the Veterans Council to raise money. The council itself is a committee appointed by the Board of Selectmen and can't really go out and raise money for itself. At least I'm unaware of that opportunity. So those are some things we need to think about as we move forward to another year. But I think Sharon will agree with this, we had outstanding response from the restaurants in town, individuals who wanted to provide food and who came up to help us at the last minute. That's wonderful. That helps us get through the day, but it doesn't help us get through the planning and the preparation that needs to go on ahead of time.
That's true. One of the things that we actually talked about this year was incorporating more of the younger people in town to work on these committees with us. We were fortunate that the junior ROTC happened to be one of the units that we spoke with, and they are in turn saying that next year they'll be more involved in the planning process. So we're hoping to get, more young people involved, because Bob has already said that he will not be here after one more year. So we're trying to get that, trying to replace him with a whole team of people. Okay.
Sharon takes me seriously, unlike you, Steve. So I simply want to say thank you for the opportunity to do this. It's been a lot of fun and consternation at times, but nevertheless, I'm pleased with the result.
Thank you. Selectman Whiteside?
I just want to say, first of all, that the planning documents that you forwarded to us were spectacular. I think that I could trust you with running any army that I'm familiar with. You did a wonderful job. It was an outstanding day, and you have some friends up above because you sandwiched that beautiful day in between some really stinking weather. Thank you so much. Your event meant a lot to a whole lot of people that probably will never be able to thank you. But I thank you.
Welcome.
Selectman Holmes?
Yeah, I just want to say that, again, I wasn't here due to one of Bob's scheduling issues. And I got to tell you that, after last Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, another sacred day, I hold Veterans Day very sacred, as you know, that people worked in commercial retail stores, and I begged friends to stay home. I mean, come on. What are we gonna do next? Christmas morning? We're gonna be working Christmas morning at Walmart and opening up Home Depot to cut the tree down, maybe? I mean, it's getting ridiculous. And Veterans Day is a special day, and yet we don't treat that with much more reverence sometimes. I worked. It's unusual for me on a Sunday, but to get where I had to be Monday morning, I had to leave on a Sunday. And it was a Canadian outfit who actually was meeting, so I don't think they care too much about November 11th specifically. They don't hold it with as much reverence as we do. But I wanted to address something else because I was watching a show today, and some financial guys from the University of Chicago were talking about benefits of work, and actually they were talking about the minimum wage issue, right? And you say that the Veteran Council and the Veteran Opportunity comes from Mr. Sullivan in the town, and I'm not faulting him. It's just a fact of reality today that number is zero, Bob. And that's no lack of respect for veterans, I don't think. It's just the reality of, you only have so many of those dollar bills to go around. And one of their opinions was, if you have a zero, right, and you don't have much, then you're able to get more. Whereas if you have more, you sometimes don't push as hard. So, if they put $10,000 in that budget, let's just use that as an example, right? If he puts $10,000 into the budget, well, you may see volunteerism go down. Follow me? Whereas where you have no money, your volunteerism is up here. And if they say, well, they don't need us because they have the money, or you don't have as much outreach because you do have money, right? You follow the theory they were using, that sometimes it is better to have a zero, well, maybe not zero, but a small amount for whatever you need. And I think if you put those numbers together, hey, nobody can promise anything today, but if you have a suggestion of what a number might be, you need to bring that forward, because you are the organizers. You know what numbers you're talking about, and I would bring that forward and put it in. And the worst thing that can happen to it is, it get cut or cut in half, but if you don't ask, then you're not going to get it, right? And you need to know what that is. But there is something to be said for zero. And I kind of thought about that for a little while. And, if these kids had $50,000 in their coffer, they wouldn't be out doing what they're doing today, right? People wouldn't be giving them a bunch of money, right? Think about that. And so if you think about that, even in this and any other charitable, because that's all we do, right, is charity. Everything's charity. You use your cell phone, call somebody, give me some money, right? But if you had all the money you needed, your volunteerism level would probably go down. So it was just an interesting theory on how they were broaching that subject.
It's a good point,
But a
Steve.
great job. Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll be very quick. Just want to thank you for the opportunity of participating. I had a great time. And thank you very much, Sandy's stepdad, Bud Kalanosi. I really appreciated the response of the people as they drove by. He's a World War II veteran. Thank you.
Just thank you as well. It was a magnificent event you folks put on. What I would say, though, to your funding issue is sitting beside me here is the Selectmen member of the Town of Wareham Community Events Committee. And if there's an event in Wareham that takes place that has any more community in it, I can't think of one. So you might want to discuss the possibility of seeking some funding from that committee, which receives town money to operate, possibly to help next year's event along.
You can correct me certainly, but I did approach the committee the first year, and it seemed like there was a conflict in that we are a town committee, or we're working for a town committee, and I think the intent of the community events operation is to provide promotional money for nonprofits.
No. Town events.
No, I think you need a date with town council on that one.
Okay.
It's supposed to be for town events, Bob.
Yeah, I would think.
Thursday.
Well, yeah,
All right.
we won't get too far into it here, but
Okay.
I think we can steer you to the right people to talk
Good.
to.
Okay.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your hard work. Jerry, what's up?
I just want to thank him and what they did, but one year it happened on the 11th, and I wish, because they say they're going to have 3 days, off, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and they didn't celebrate it when they, on the 11th. So I wish that they will always do it on the Veterans Day to give those persons, the people that were lost. That's what we celebrated for.
Okay.
I ain't saying he's not doing a good job. I commend him for what he's doing, but have it on the day that it's supposed to be. Don't have it just because you're gonna have a 3-day, off from work or something.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify that, so the public doesn't think that Bob picked that date. I remember that. That was, I think, 2 years ago, right? And it was on a Sunday, and they had it on the. We had the parade on the Monday. That was not his decision. I remember you brought that up that night. It was not his decision. That's the decision that came down from the council to have that date on the Monday, when Sunday, I believe, was actually the 11th, and they didn't want to interfere with people's church service.
Yep.
Right? You remember that?
I don't,
That was 2 years ago. I know.
say it was his fault.
I know. Just want to clarify so that people don't think Bob picked that date, because I remember that we had a discussion that night, Mr. Barros, about
Whether
that.
it's the council or not, it's Veterans Day, the 11th.
I-
I don't care what it is, whether it's the President of the United States.
We all agreed with you, and we agree with you today, but it wasn't our decision to make.
Yeah. We're clear on where you stand, Jerry. Thank you.
I'm not saying it's
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your work in the past and in the future, Bob. The long-term future, Bob.
Yes, the long-term future, Bob.
Next, next item, please.
Next item, which I read off before, vote to sign Massachusetts Coastal Coalition letter regarding flood insurance program.
Yeah, this was something that the Massachusetts Coastal Coalition put together and sent out to all the coastal communities, asking us to essentially petition the Congress to take a look at the Bigger Waters Flood Insurance Act. Previously, we sent a letter to Representative Keating. This is a general letter to the Congress itself.
I move that we sign the letter as documented in our packet, which is dated November 20, well, it should be dated December 3rd.
Second.
Second, I would just further move that we hold this letter until Mr. Capiano has a chance to sign it.
Yeah, we can do that, absolutely.
Before they sign it.
No, this is one of his big issues. Thank you for that reminder. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400. Thank you.
Next item is Wareham Citizens Award. I've had over the last 5 or 6 months several people come up talking about certain people in town that have done special things over and above, and they'd like to see people get recognized. Also, I believe our policy number 8816. Give me a minute here. Which is on the ones that I reviewed just recently. It's an employee recognition policy that we really don't do. It was put together back September 20th of 1988. Talks about possibly having like an employee of the month, an employee of the year. I'd like to, when we get to this particular policy that I've done some work on, also look at doing a citizens, and it's not a volunteer per se, but a citizen Wareham type of award for people who've done some outstanding work over and above. So I'd like to kind of meld this all together and to have not only the town administrator would handle the employees through his department heads, have maybe a monthly employee of the month, which is a common thing. It's good for morale. And at the end of each year time frame, we have an employee of the year. And then also, like I say, the citizens will be just as they come through. It won't be on a time basis. If the board is willing, I'd like to get this more on the agenda and work this out in the next few weeks.
Selectman Whiteside?
Yes, it's one of the things that I actually brought up several months ago, that there are a lot of people who do things above and beyond the extraordinary, ordinary hero. And I fully support Mr. Slavin's idea, concept, and I think that we should move forward with recognizing not only our employees, but also just the average citizen who steps forward and does something awesome.
Thank you.
Selectman Holmes?
Yeah, this you are still doing the Christmas awards, correct,
Yes.
Chairman? And this in no way interferes with that.
No, this would be separate.
Outstanding.
I agree. Thank you for kicking this off. This will appear on future agendas. Next item, please.
Next item up is discussion permitting guidebook. This is something that Mrs. Whiteside and myself have talked about recently, and also I think I brought this up maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, not from the board, but through the planning board. Mrs. Whiteside?
It occurred to me that one of the things that Wareham needs to do is appear to be a business-friendly place, a good place to live, a good place to work, a good place to locate your company. I talked with a couple of different contractors and found that Wareham, unfortunately, is not perceived as an easy place to get permitting done for, the regular Joe. For big corporations, we may bend over backwards and we may make an extra effort, but it's very, very confusing to regular people. So I went online and I found a handbook that was created back in 2009 by somebody who apparently now works for Serpide.
Yeah, Mrs. Fox actually is the governor's appointee for South Coast Rail.
Okay, and it's a document that is very, very long. I gave a copy of it to Mr. Sullivan and also gave a copy of it to Mr. Iafredi, just to see whether it was something that could be adopted to our use to make us more user-friendly.
So what are you looking for tonight? A consensus among the board to ask Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Iafredi to look at this further to see about the possibility of coming up with something similar for us?
Yes, yes, it's certainly their decision, Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Iafredi's decision. And I think that in my conversations with them, I think Mr. Slavin's conversations with them, that it is something that they would look forward to. We also happen to have a citizen who's willing to do the typing, so it would not fall on.
Outstanding.
It wouldn't, the the doing of it. It would have to be put together by different boards and commissions, but there is somebody who's willing to do the work of getting it all put together.
The idea of this is really to make it really simple. If you want to do something, I'm sure you won't be able to see it, I'm sorry, but this is talking about a zoning bylaw variance process, and it's a flow chart. It basically tells you point by point how to go through it all. The biggest problem we have, and Mr. Sullivan's working on it, is that when someone comes into town hall, they get thrown to 14 different places, which is an exaggeration, but they get sent here, there, and that keeps going in a circle. When a document like this gets finished and done and completed, anybody coming in knows exactly where to go and how the process is. We're providing a service that people are paying us for, and we should do a lot better job than what we're doing. We're not providing a very good service. We're not efficient, we're not economical as far as the business coming into us, and we need to get on track because we're competing against 351 communities in the state, and the ones that are more business friendly and more business usable are the ones that are going to get business.
It's complicated too because we have the two separate districts, so that the permitting actually is more difficult in Wareham.
It is.
Because you need to go someplace other than town hall to get your documents signed. But again, I think we're looking for support and maybe direction for Mr. Sullivan to adopt this kind of a
Well,
document.
if the board wishes just to vote as guidance and policy to the town administrator, that we'd like to see something like this, developed. Hopefully, we'll get some interns to help them as well.
Selectman Holmes?
Yeah, I mean, I think any tool is good. I don't know about average Joes or a business, not your average Joes, I guess. But still, when we're dealing with a large business or somebody, and you hand them this book, that's fine. They can go look at it on the website. But I still think that, the task force that we continue to use, so to speak, we call it a task force. I don't think that this is a replacement for that. This is just a tool in addition to that. Is that correct?
It is a tool to enable people to understand what they have to do. to
Because
help them.
typically, if somebody comes in and they, and it's not a big business or
No,
there's
it's-
no
it's-
limit to it.
Yeah.
We had a young lady one time who wanted to open a restaurant, a small restaurant in town, and she came to it was Mr. Andrews was here at the time, and she came to one of the meetings during the day, and all the department heads were there. She said what she had to do. Now, it would have been nice that day if we could have said, here you go, and let us highlight these pages because this is what you need. But we didn't have this, so I think that this tool, in addition to what we're doing on the other end, would be fantastic. I would think if you called somebody, they could send you an electronic copy of this,
We have it.
and it would just be a matter of cleaning it up.
Yeah, we have it.
I think it's great. We don't have to vote on this, right? I mean, he's just going to do it, right?
Well, I think just the board just says that we're all in agreement. It's
Yeah,
simple as
I
that.
think we
We're
are.
gonna do it.
You've got a consensus here, I think.
Okay.
So go ye forth and produce. Thank you very much for working on this, and thank you for your future anticipated work on this. Next item, please.
Next item was regionalization. We've been talking about this for off and on, for a while. We've talked about in the town itself trying to regionalize dispatch and some other things here, and I think we need to somehow make a decision that we want to kick this off and get more active with it. Reach out to surrounding communities to see where we have possible synergies that we can put together. I gave everybody a copy of a worksheet for a Wareham plan, and it just talks about just things in general. I just think it's time that we actually start to move on some of these things.
Selectman Whiteside?
I think it's overdue, actually. And it probably needs to be spearheaded by you, Mr. Slavin, because you seem to be able to get us moving. I was really disturbed when you went on vacation. Didn't feel pressured to whatever. I think it's a great idea, and certainly some of the consolidations can be hopefully gained and garnered within the town of Wareham itself. Different, working with the school, for instance, or working through that public safety commission that may not have met yet.
She just, I mean, if you're just going to talk about going around talking to different towns and regionalization, personally, I favor the idea, okay? But I think it's a waste of time if we're not going to do it within our own boundaries.
Have to do it everywhere.
And without the Kumbaya song, some of our biggest partners in town departments are not willing to even look at this or have a discussion about it. So if we're not willing to regionalize within our own town over who plows what, who cleans what, who fixes what, I mean, other towns would laugh at us if we went to them. So I think that, there's a lot of work to be done here as well. I think it's a great idea. I've been proposing it for 3 years with another town body and just keep getting rejected. Somebody said this at the last budget meeting last year was in the library, how can we regionalize somewhere else if we're not even doing it within our town? And there are a lot of areas that we could do that and save money out of 3 different buckets, town, district, I think. I still think we should have a summit and bring all those people together like we started to do with the safety issues. So I support it.
Well, with that in mind,
But we have to look inward as well, not just regionalization. We have to look within Wareham as well.
But we do have that Public Safety Commission that should be working on those issues. Mr. Sullivan? Yes, no, maybe?
I would say no on it. We have it, but I can command our staff, but, so I would say it might take, some of the board members and such to reach out, because I think that.
whatever you need.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
this was a priority. We discussed this several times over the past several months. So if you're not enjoying the success you think you should be, then feel free to prevail upon us to reach out to those people.
Some of this goes back 2 and 3 years, and unfortunately, if you sit there and wait, every time you turn around, it's 3-4 months later. It doesn't happen. My suggestion, again, basically for this, bringing this up, was that we need to basically get this kicked off and push it ourselves.
Do we need to formalize this? Do we need to establish a subcommittee? Is there something that you need as a tool, do you think, to make this happen, so it doesn't just, we have it on the agenda, we talk about it, we say, yeah, great idea, and then it goes away for 3 months and we don't
No, I mean, it's like the
come back?
It's like the public safety complex. We know that individually we can't all get what we want, but as a group, with saving of positions, saving, with the actual cost of a facility and everything else, it's a possibility of putting something together. But we have to get the 2 districts and the town to sit down and discuss it. We did have a meeting back 3 or 4 years ago in which we had all the stakeholders come in and sit down, and the first discussion was, can you work together? And the answer was yes. Unfortunately, we never went past that point. It's time to go past that point and push the issue to sit down, because the fire department, as we all know, has put money aside for a new fire station for Main Street and moving it somewhere. It makes no sense to build a new building today unless we're going to sit there and combine it with the EMS, with the harbor master, with the police station, somehow centralize and cut costs. The dispatch is a simple area where why would you want to have 4 dispatches when in the state of California they have 2 for the whole state? And these are just simple, easy things to deal with. Purchasing, I know I'm probably stepping out of line for Mr. Sullivan, but the school, the town, even the 2 districts, why can't you have central purchasing? Save money for everybody in the long run. There's just a lot of things you can do. We have pieces of equipment that we don't use all the time that we could take one of our employees, if we had enough bodies, and we could lease out some equipment when a town needs something if they don't have that equipment. These are discussions that SERPED in particular, through Ross Perry, has brought up, talking about these things. They're more than willing to step up and help us as well. But the problem is us. We have to step up and push it. It's not going to happen on its own. We've been going this 3-4 years, and we're still at point 1, if we'll call it that. We just haven't got off the dime. So I just want to get off the dime.
Me too.
And I think that, I don't know about the meeting 3 or 4 years ago, but we just had a meeting here in these chambers less than a year ago, where we had EMS, we had Onset Wareham Chief, Lieutenant Walchek was here, we had NSTAR here, and we had everybody here. Remember that?
We had everybody.
And our next step from there was for the chief, who was the chairman of that committee that we formally certified in the town of Wareham, was to call another meeting, and then he got sick. So I think the most expedient way to at least get internally to get this kick started again is to go to Lieutenant Walsh and have him or Lieutenant Walchuk, I guess, they should work together on it, but they should schedule that meeting, and soon.
Yeah, I think I'll reach out to the interim chief and have him speak
And
to
invite this board, this board, and both district boards to that meeting.
Yeah,
And let's have the meeting.
two prudential committees.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Let's
think
have the
having
meeting.
policy
As well as
I mean,
the,
everybody
auditor.
sat here that night agreeing. That chief agreed with that chief, God rest his soul, Howie Anderson. And our chief of police, who's no longer here. So, but I mean, we have Kevin, and we have Lieutenant Walchuk, who's still doing all the emergency stuff.
correct.
We have the new interim chief in onset. And let's get Kevin and John to schedule that meeting, and let's have the meeting. I mean, God, what does it take to have a meeting? It's not like
Not
pulling
just
teeth.
one meeting. I think you're all saying that you had the meeting. Let's have a meeting and have regular meetings.
Oh, yeah, no,
No, no,
just saying,
and I'm not saying
let's
that you didn't
schedule
say
the
that. Yeah,
meeting.
let's get it
Once we
done.
do that, everybody can pull out their night and say, okay,
Yeah,
the first Monday of every month, or every other
Yeah.
Thursday at 6 o'clock, or whatever works.
Right.
Let's just get the first meeting done, scheduled.
and the second meeting.
Why don't you reach out,
And that's what happened.
reach out,
And
let-
before you know it, then we're all meeting, and then you bring in Alan's partners.
Yep.
And you have a working thing, but you gotta have the first meeting to have a second one.
Yep.
I
Well,
think.
I think we're all in agreement here. Thank you for your work on this.
Next item is condensing town committees. This is basically the same deal again. We talked about it. We asked Rich Bowen a little bit about some legalities, which we haven't done. Everybody's got a sheet of the committees that we can take care of, do some things with. The major issue here is that we're running into constant problems with getting quorums for a lot of the committees that are basically advisory committees in particular. One of the ones we talked about, but we haven't done anything, was putting together what we call a Natural Resources Committee. The idea was, and I'm just putting numbers out there, there's nothing been really finalized or anything, but you could have a committee of 11 members with a 6 for a quorum. But you could take possibly like the Minor Forest Committee, Marine Resources, Open Space, Bike Path. Fields and Grounds is a problem because that was put together through town meeting, and I'm not sure whether or not that's possible to do unless town meeting basically voids that committee and puts it into a different committee. But you could have those 5 committees where they would have like little subcommittees doing work in each individual, but they come together, and when it comes time to vote on things, so they basically, you only need a 6-person quorum, but when you have 5 committees, normally you're gonna have 25 people. We don't have 25 people that are consistently there. So you could take what requires 25 people and cut it back to 11 and still make it work. So this is just, again, my thoughts about that. You know, Green Initiatives Committee, which has to do with sustainable energy, trash, litter, recycling. And then we have some of the historical committees, the Historical District Commission, Historical Commission, Cemetery. We could, again, same issues, they have quorum issues. We can sit down and kind of reinvent what we do a little bit. You know, you can't have 100 committees because we don't have 500 people to volunteer. So we need to look at this.
Well, I think now's the time, Alan. I agree with you 100% here. We're kicking this thing ourselves a little bit, but that's
Oh, yeah.
okay. Because I think we get this list, and those that we need, those that were approved by town meeting, right?
Yeah.
It's already November, going into December. We get the articles written, go back to town meeting, ask them to
Change whatever
disband,
and
right?
reestablish.
Well, no, you don't have to reestablish. You just disband the committee, because then what we could do is take those responsibilities and put them into the regular committees, and then those people could come and apply and move over to the other group. But as long as you have those committees that are coming from another body, we can't do anything about it. So when you try to combine groups, it makes it very difficult.
Yeah.
Right.
Most-
But now's the time to do it, so we get the articles done and get them written.
Well, we can work with town council to look at the genesis of each committee, how it came forward and everything else. I know you've done some initial work on that.
Well, we know. We don't have to ask a lawyer how the committees were generated. We know that. have
Well, we
the
do in
appointing
most
committee in
instances.
the
Some of
office.
them are, see, Selectman Whiteside shaking her head because she along with I, if there's a few that are kind of sketchy out there, we can't find when they actually began or how.
Right.
The town reports don't seem to reference them. It might be helpful actually to get an intern into
It's like the marine
do
resources.
that along with other
like
historic
that.
research, but nonetheless, I do agree that I think we have to proceed first with the plan, and then the nuts and bolts of it have to come after. You've got to figure out ahead of time what your sort of overarching committees are going to be, and then how do you fit the individual existing committees into that framework would be my suggestion on how to go forward with it. Selectman Whiteside?
One of the things that is beneficial in consolidation is that you really have offered the public the opportunity to become engaged. That there may be people who have a specific interest and that they would be willing to work, on the subcommittees as Mr. Slavin has outlined. It's really imperative, though, that we start doing this now. Mr. Slavin brought this to my attention way back in July. I'm looking at the date on the memo. So if we're going to kick ourselves, let's continue to kick ourselves. We need to get some of this stuff done, guys. And I'm just as much at fault as you are, but we need to actually start doing some of the things that we've been talking about.
Next item up is, I think it's a mistake on the actual agenda.
So, excuse
sorry,
me.
go ahead.
Excuse me. So just what she just said, and what I just said 10 minutes ago. So what's the next step? If we just have it on next week's agenda, it's going to come back, the same thing's going to happen.
How about this?
What are we going to do for next week?
May I make a suggestion? Because we have already saddled Mr. Slavin with something else. If you're okay with the general outline, I will make it a priority to research the origins of the first 5, which would be put under natural resources, which would be minot forest, marine resources, open space, bike path, and fields and grounds.
Right.
There is a need for those, the functions of those committees to be done, accomplished. I'm having a hard time. But I also think it's important to do all of them. I'm willing to try and get it, well, at least the first 5, but I'm willing to try and get most of those with a report for next Tuesday.
Okay.
How's that?
Yeah, I'll keep that on the agenda with, and I'll make a notation.
So you'll be
report
getting
from
the origins of where they, how did this committee come to be? And that at least gives us a starting point, Mr. Holmes, correct?
Well, we agree that, we've seen this list isn't new, right?
No, that's correct.
So we agree, I haven't heard any opposition that these 5 committees belong together. I haven't heard any opposition to that since July.
No.
Right?
But I don't think in fairness, I don't think we've discussed it too many times.
Oh.
Well, I don't know. I've discussed it a lot with Mr. Slavin, but
Well, I think if what if you give us,
Trying to get to a head.
yeah,
right?
I know,
That's all I'm trying to get to.
yeah, because ultimately it's going to fall to us to make the decision whether to proceed, and then possibly get town meeting involved as well as to whether to form a quote natural resources committee unquote, and so that decision has to be made, I think, here to start.
Maybe we could do this for next week to make it real simple. Notify the board. Patrick's not here, I understand that this is the recommended list. Right? Anybody has an issue with it, it's not going past Tuesday. The list is finalized on the 10th.
well, should we not also ask representatives or the chairs of those specific things whether they have a problem with it? Some of these things don't even exist. There's nobody on the board.
Right. So, okay, so we're not going to come to a list, so.
No, but what
Then-
I'm saying
then-
is then you if we're
then,
going
you
to
know
be
what?
talking about,
Next Tuesday, invite the 5 chairmen from these committees in here.
well, let's do all of them.
Well, you're going to get
Well,
all
that's
these
going to be a
people
10-hour
in one
meeting, and
night.
we got a ton of stuff over the next
But if
couple of
you take-
weeks.
if
So
you-
Okay,
let's-
so we do the first one. We'll do the natural resource.
That would make
First
sense.
time.
Pick
Invite the
them off.
chairman or a representative from each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups in
Right.
here Tuesday night.
Yeah, let's take a small bite to start.
Mr. Sullivan, does that work for you?
That's a small bite,
It is.
the first group.
Yep.
And then if it makes sense, then the next week, we'll already know the origins, because Janet will take care of that. And she'll have them on this list for us next week, I bet you, if she does the minutes. Because we just went through a bunch of this already,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And then she'll be able to
There
tell
will
us
be-
what were BOS appointed and what were appointed by some other appointing.
You will have a list in front of you of how it was created, who is on it, and how many members there's supposed to be. How about that?
Like on Minot Forest, there's probably some special little things added to that committee,
That's correct.
you know, and I'm sure Fields, I could say Fields and Grounds, I know is done by town meeting.
Right.
Therefore, that would have to be dissolved by town meeting and reestablished.
Right.
It wasn't done by, it was done?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Well, it hasn't met in 2 years. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I understand, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just like we did with one a couple of months ago. It's not, and they were meeting, but, I mean, there's no formal committee disbanded.
Yeah.
In this case, what we're gonna do is go back to town, in that case, we'll have to go to town meeting. If we agree that this is the right box, we gotta go back to town meeting and say disband your committee. People will vote, disband the committee, then those members are free to come and join the Natural Resources Committee, if that's where you believe it belongs. So if we can at least agree
Yep.
on that, then we can, the next week, we'll move forward the next step, and we're done. But if
Okay.
you keep moving it from week to week, you're right.
Yeah, there's probably going to be workshops on this, so at this point in time, there's really no public commentary to be had. Anything else?
Nope.
Thanks. Next item, please.
Again, the formation of the master plan committee, that should have been just update status, whether they've actually met yet or not. Patrick is not here, and he's, I believe, temporary chair is what we set him up as.
We're still missing, right?
I don't know, simply because Patrick was gonna follow through on it.
Yeah, we had delegated him as the member, and he was
I think
supposed to
we're
call the
still
meeting.
missing one person, right? He's sitting in the back of the room, working on his thing.
You're getting a big head shake there.
We're just gonna appoint him next week. Is next
Yeah, I
week
think
the
so.
third Tuesday or the we gotta wait another
We can
week.
appoint anytime we
17th.
want, actually.
You're in. David.
It's about time.
Next item, please.
Update on policies, ongoing discussion. Everybody has a list of what I did while I was away on vacation. I think there's 30, I lost count, either 36 or 38 policies that I've reviewed, made suggestions for changes. Patrick's not here. It's up to the board whether you want to work on this or put this off for a week and make sure everybody's here. Everybody has a copy of all the policies with the changes that was put in their packet as well.
Why don't we consider,
Knocking off maybe 3 or 4 every week.
All right, then I ask that the chairman basically has the list and
yeah, I've got
Puts
the
on the
master list
agenda.
here. I'll just go right in order down the thing. I don't think there's any, unless you've got a preferential order here you want to do these in.
no, I
Just
didn't-
grab 4 or 5 a week and just bing, bang, boom.
Yeah, no, I just did them in order. I'm up
And
to
just so that we know, we've got in our packets here what Selectman Slavin worked on, put together in a nice handy form, and going forward, let's just bring this along with us for each meeting until we get to the bottom of the list.
I
Then
think
it'll be time to start over again.
I believe I got up. Looks like I got up to March 2003. So we don't have that much more left to go after that.
So we'll shell them out and get them done.
Next item up is the vote on the fees. Again, I think we probably should have a full board for that.
Yes, I believe so.
So we're going to have to hold
Yes,
on
and-
that one.
Continued thanks for your work on this, Selectman Whiteside.
You're welcome.
Sorry about that. Any town business not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to posting of this meeting? Mrs. Whiteside?
No, thank you very much.
Mr. Holmes? I have nothing.
Nothing.
Mr. Sullivan, it's your turn.
Thank you. The first item I would like to speak about is I was able to attend a really fantastic event, to put it bluntly. It was for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater New Bedford and Wareham. they have an annual, they call it a steak and burger dinner. So the kids that get to go because they've been doing well, or they're exemplary members of the Boys and Girls Club. The kids are the ones that get the steak, and the adults get the cheeseburger or the burger. So it's a neat thing that they put on. But as part of it, they celebrated academic achievements, which I thought was great. And there was 2 outstanding Wareham students who I'd just like to congratulate them again, because I think they really need to be congratulated. And that was Miss Jasmine Simmons and Mr. Indiana Troop, and I applaud what they did. So we have applied with SERPED to be part of the Community Innovation Challenge grant for electronic management solutions. We are drowning in paper. What's funny is we forget that every time we call town hall or ask for something, someone has to stop what they're doing, literally go out to cabinets, sometimes in other rooms or other parts of the building, to locate papers. It's a monster, and we're really looking to digitize our documentation, including old documentation. If we were to do this on our own, it would be 6 figures right off the bat, just looking at some of the old documents. So I'm hoping something can be put together with this. It's still going to take a lot of work from our own departments, but the hardest part is getting the documents initially digitized and coded and such. So I'm hopeful we'll get this. This is the second grant that we've applied through SERPED. The first was the e-permitting, which we also received. And I'm thankful that we're able to work with them on some of these fantastic opportunities. The next item that I have is just an update for some of the projects that we have from the procurement aspect. One of them is the Wareham Free Library. We had the funds to repair and replace windows and doors that were rotten, that was approved at town meeting. And I believe on December 5th there will be a bid opening for that. That's being done by Municipal Maintenance Department. At one point, we were hoping to do the labor ourselves and purchase the items needed for it through a procurement process. However, that's called bid splitting, and they frown on that. So that was not allowed. We have awarded the bid for the purchase of the ambulance, and they have begun that process. They are actually going to be building a chassis from the ground up for us. It's a lengthy process, but it is. We're actually waiting for a 2014 chassis to be available. The multi-service center roof, the restoration in this building itself, the bid opening for that is also on December 5th. So that's a big date for us. We had a mandatory bidders conference so that they could walk through it and see what's going on. So we're hopeful, especially with the timing of it, that we'll be able to get an excellent price. If you remember last year, the bid for the high school gym roof came in, I believe, in the 70 to 75,000 once you had a clerk of the works range, and we had estimated an approximate cost of 110,000. So let's hope we can get something similar to that. Currently, one of the police supervisor vehicles, which is a Ford SUV Interceptor, is being put together. When town meeting, when the monies were changed for what we were looking to purchase, it changes how you have to buy them. You go off the state bid list. The state bid list is not the lowest price. It's just an approved bid. We look for the lowest price and how to outfit it. And that's how you can save some of the money and be able to get the 3 vehicles. So we've got the supervisor vehicle being put together, and we're working on the 2 other ones as well. So those are the updates I have for us right now. Oh, the Carolina Skiff is, well, actually I shouldn't say Carolina Skiff. We are having 3 bids for the water taxi. The 3 companies are Carolina Skiff, and I'm going to forget the other 2, so if it turns out to be Carolina Skiff, we did do the procurement process on it. So, and those are just some of the items that we're working on.
Any questions? Thank you for the update. Next item, please.
Committee reports, Mrs. Whiteside.
I'm happy to say that I guess Mr. Treitelbaum reported on it last week when I was unavailable. The cemetery commissioner's report is completed, being finally signed off by the chairman for the annual report. Committee seems to be doing very, very well. I am scheduled to be at a meeting with the ADA Council, except that it isn't posted for Thursday night at 6. The 5th? Thursday. Oh, Thursday. Tuesday? Wednesday? When was it posted? Did you see it? I didn't see a posting, actually, to be honest with you.
She alerted me to an issue, a potential issue with the posting. I did check the bulletin board outside of Town Hall, and it's not there. So I don't know if something fell through the cracks or... Well, you're the liaison. You can
I
perhaps
will work
assist.
with you to...
Yes. Please assist Joe. And no.
Uh,
No, I did
no.
check it as I pulled in tonight, and it wasn't up. So perhaps our liaison could work with Mr. Mulkern to get that squared away and so that they can have a meeting.
Yes,
Thank you.
and I think that's it.
Mr. Holmes. The only thing I have is just a request. We have Buzzards Bay Coalition sent off a note about us, basically the town administrator really, following up on a support for some new rules and regulations on tugs and double hull vessels. I think this really should come before us as the Board of Selectmen. I would ask the chairman to schedule and request that Mrs. Peterson and Mr. Rasmussen from the Buzzards Bay Coalition come before us and explain what they're asking for the
And
board.
that the harbor master be here
Yeah,
at the
and
same
the harbor
time.
master as well, sorry.
Yeah, I saw the correspondence and what they're essentially looking for us to do, which is just simply send a letter in support of regulations requiring double-hulled vessels to be used in the canal to avoid spills when they ground. But I suppose it would make sense to have them in briefly to just explain to the public what the issues are.
It'd be nice to know what the impact is economically and everything else as well.
Yeah, they may not be prepared to answer that. You may get a tugboat captain here for that one, but
Oh, they're a huge impact. They're still paying out. And that
well, we're
stuff
talking about
does
the
not
cost
go away.
of.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we're talking about the cost of retrofitting barges and things like that, which is, I think, the.
That's the big issue, and that's what the issue has been. That's why people have not done what they were supposed to have done because of the life expectancy of those barges.
I know, interestingly, I have a little background on this. I know a little while back, I think the state passed regulations requiring double-hulled vessels to be used in coastal waterways in Massachusetts. However, since these vessels also traverse national, as in federal waterways, as well as international waterways, those regulations were struck down in court. So this is another attempt, I guess, to try to get some regulations here to require the double-hulled vessels. So we'll hear more from Corin and Mr. Rasmussen as well on this. You can do that.
Thank you. Mr. Titlebaum, any reports?
Nothing. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. Do you want to recognize?
For what purpose? Okay, yeah. Just to clarify, if you want to, caught me. If you want to meet and greet with the superintendent, you can do so at 9 a.m. at the Stonebridge and Onset, or you can do so at, I believe it was 6
to
p.m. to 7 p.m. in the middle school auditorium. Thank Thank you for that clarification. Might have been some angry people down at Stonebridge tomorrow night.
I heard motion to adjourn again.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night, Wareham.